Welcome, gamers, to this Link to the Past randomizer match between Ikaros and Applety. This is one of the matches that has happened as part of the Go Mode Podcast Mentor Tournament 2024. Let me get these streams synced up for you guys. We are here in the semifinals of the fighter bracket, and we've got a Kain of Samarnia in Link's house. Very spicy. Like I was saying, we're here in the semifinals of the fighter sword bracket. Ikaros and Applety played this match against each other. This is actually game 2 of a best of 3 series. Applety having taken the first game in the series with a win in an all dungeons seed. Game 2, our mode today is going to be casual boots, so both of our runners are going to be going through the Hyrule Castle escape sequence. Going to be wanting to see some clean dash lines and hopefully not too many bonks or enemy hits, but we'll see how both of these runners do. Already Applety off to about a one screen advantage, although we saw Ikaros did elect to spend a little bit of extra time picking up those small magics underneath those two pots. Ikaros is the second seed in the fighter sword bracket, and Applety seed number 3. So both, as far as seeding goes, both of these runners about evenly matched, although, you know, seeding isn't everything, of course. We'll have to see how these runners perform. I will note that this race was actually run asynchronously, so these runners, I guess due to scheduling concerns, I assume, were not able to schedule a live race. But I'm just playing their videos side by side as if they were racing live, because of course they are going to be playing the same seed, and we'll get to see what different decisions they end up making in terms of routing and how they perform as they execute their way through Castle Escape sequence. Applety's lead continuing to hold on here. Very nice double spin against that second blue guard, and we do see the map there, which means that runners are going to have to open that chest in Sanctuary later on. Ooh, Ikaros missing that spin there, has to clean it up with a few extra slashes, but no big deal. And looks like Applety is going to go for using the pots here. We'll see if it's a 2-pot strat or if it's a hybrid strat. Looks like a hybrid strat, so 1 pot and 4 slashes. It's a good balance between speed and safety. Of course, the optimal way to kill that ball and chain guard is using 8 slashes, but a lot of runners will elect to just go for at least 1 pot. You can see Ikaros trying to do the 8 slashes strat, but having to back out of it. Definitely don't want to take a death there, and the ball and chain guard does do 1 full heart of damage. You don't want to be dying this early into the seed. So Ikaros trying to cut it a little bit closer, but unfortunately has to resort to a slower backup strat, and is going to end up a little bit further behind because of that. Still only on 1 heart, so we'll see if Ikaros decides to pick up an extra heart somewhere along the way back before she gets into the sewers section of the escape sequence. So Applety was, only a single screen ahead when we first started things, but definitely a few screens ahead at this point, so hopefully on track for a pretty good escape sequence time here. We'll see at what timestamp both of these runners end up exiting the escape sequence. And Applety is into the sewers / dark room section of the back of Hyrule Castle Escape. Dashing through all those snakes. Ikaros taking a little bit of an alternate route to the throne room there. And we get a 3-bomb pack in Dark Cross. It's always nice to see, knowing that our runners will not have to be on the lookout for, bombs before heading to Kakariko Village, although I will say in casual boots modes, that's often not that big of a deal, because there is a pile of bonkable rocks right before Kakariko outside of the Fortune Teller's hut that you can bonk into for a single bomb that will guaranteed always give you a bomb, so And looks like in the back of Escape we get our lamp. We did have a kind of free light cone that the game gave us while we were doing that escape sequence to not, force us into any of these rooms in the dark, of course, but looks like we will not have to do any rooms in the dark for the rest of the seed since there's our lamp in the back of Escape. And Applety getting out of Escape under 5, just at the 5:20 mark, so very nice time. Icarus is going to be falling a little bit behind here, but I imagine is going to finish, below 6 minutes still. So I imagine both of our runners are going to head over to Kakariko Village. We'll see if either of them or both of them decide to take a stop at the Lumberjack Cave check. Applety remembering that Bonk Rocks is accessible. If you're not used to playing casual boots, often easy to forget this check, since if you're used to just playing open modes, it's not available early on, but... Alright, and Icarus getting out of here under the 6 minute mark. Applety decided to skip out on that Lumberjack Cave check. I've mentioned this a couple times on this channel already, but it is common for runners to check Lumberjack Cave early in casual boot seeds, as you already have boots and one sword, and we even have a lamp. So we're, not that far off, not as far off as normal in terms of being able to access that item on Lumberjack Cave. And it looks like Icarus is going to give us that Lumberjack Cave check, so we'll see if anything interesting is over there. But otherwise, skipping that check is going to put Applety a little bit further ahead. So he will be the first one into Kakariko Village. And Applety showing us that Bonkable Rocks, grabbing that extra bomb, so now they've got 4 on hand. And it looks like just 3 bombs at Lumberjack Cave, so that's not going to be required. Of course, we still don't know whether Aga is required for our Dark World access. But we'll see how that, we'll see what the possibility of that looks like as the seed shapes up. We got the Fire Rod. We got both of our fire sources early on. That's always nice to see. And we got the Flippers. So early Flippers putting not only Zora into logic, but also the Waterfall Cave checks, as well as the Camper Under the Bridge, also known as the Hobo. Personally, it's an item that I actually don't appreciate seeing super early on in casual boot seeds, as it means that doing a water walk from Ice Rod Cave to the Zora check is not possible, as you have to cross some shallow water in order to do that. And with the Flippers, your water walk state will end if you do that. And of course, it's not like you can toggle on and off the Flippers at will, unfortunately. We got a mushroom here in the Kakariko Well. That is something that is relatively easy to turn in, especially with the Flippers on hand. I think the fastest way from a save and quit is actually going to be to just start Sanctuary and then dash to the right and swim over. It is worth noting that since we got that Cane of Samaria in Link's house, it might be worth hanging on to that mushroom, as with both the mushroom and the Cane of Samaria on hand, you can do a fake powder glitch to potentially check Magic Bat later on. We'll see if that ends up being a factor for either of our runners here today. So the standard play, the most common play after hitting up all these Kakariko checks is to go to the dam usually, and potentially going right to Mini Moldorm Cave and Ice Rod Cave. There's a glove on the library ledge there. That does, so Zora was actually ready in logic with the Flippers, but that glove does put the first 2 checks of Death Mountain in logic, in combination with the lamp that we have. And Applety deciding to blind check this race game, thinks that there could be something good on here. Some runners will elect to blind check this, some runners will elect to scout it out first, as that does save you time. You just get to save and quit right away, faster. But Apple-T getting paid off, so Apple-T kind of making all the right calls this seed, and that is a Master Sword, which does actually give us the logical ability to beat Aghanim. Now, without a Moon Pearl, that's not really that much concern, because it only you only open up a single check on Pyramid Ledge, so at this point, without finding a Moon Pearl, I think that's definitely going to be a last resort for both of our runners, but once we find our Moon Pearl, things will get a little bit more interesting. We still don't have, even with the Moon Pearl, we still won't have great Dark World access. We do have a Glove and Flippers, so we'll be able to check Catfish, and we'll be able to get into Palace of Darkness, and we'll be able to check some stuff there, assuming it's not bow-locked. But no access to the rest of the Dark World, even if we do Aga. And Icaros deciding to scout race game, but is going to unfortunately lose a couple of seconds here in this particular seed, because you definitely don't want to leave that sword upgrade behind. Apple-T finding some rupees in the second treasure spot, and deciding to go left to Agena. So some runners will decide to go right to Mini Moldorm Cave there, and some runners will elect to go left here to Agena. Apple-T also electing to skip checking the Desert Ledge. I will say, if you are checking Agena, this is the most efficient way to do it, but a lot of runners will try and see if they can skip Agena. It is a check that's easy to single out for, okay, I can hope to not to have to do this. Apple-T actually dashing out of Agena. Okay, never mind. They're going to save and quit. We see a bottle here on Lake Hylia. That's pretty interesting. And Icaros deciding to swim over to the Zora domain area. That's interesting. I actually would have expected them to make a check over to Hobo first, but it looks like they want to skip that for now and just get directly to these other water checks. In the meantime, Apple-T going to follow up on this mushroom. We have the Cane of Burna in Waterfall Cave. That's not going to be relevant yet, but potentially could play a factor in giving us logical access to Spike Cave. And Apple-T taking a little bit, taking a common route to the potion shop using the Whirlpool underneath Link's house. I do believe that is slightly slower than actually starting at Sanctuary, but not by much. And we'll see if they decide, ooh, so there is a bottle here at the potion shop. Pre-filled. Very convenient. So I imagine both of our runners, looks like Icaros going to the dam now. I imagine neither of our runners are going to be seed scumming that mushroom, because that bottle does open up Sick Kid as a logical check. Okay, Apple-T gonna go ahead and go to Mini Moldorm Cave. And Icaros, so leaving behind Hobo for now, but they did scout Lake Hylia Island, and they got the 2 checks inside Waterfall Cave, but of course they didn't have enough money to pay the 500 rupee fee to get the check on Zora. Apple-T decided to go left from the dam. I wonder if part of that was wanting to have some extra money on hand. And Icaros getting full magic from that enemy in the bushes. That's not something you see every day. I wonder if Apple-T was, trying to do some extra checks to potentially have some money for Zora. They could have also been wanting to be a little bit more thorough with their Light World checks, knowing that this seed does look like it has the potential of turning into Aghanim for required Dark World access. And we've got the book at Ice Rod Cave, so that is going to be a full clearable Desert Palace. I don't think we've seen a map check actually on either of these 2 runners' side, but I imagine Desert Palace is probably going to be the next step, which is actually pretty good for Apple-T, who is going to set up a water walk here, it looks like. Yeah, very nice. I imagine they are probably going to go to Hobo from here, as that is the most effective use of this water walk. So this is actually shaping up to be kind of interesting in a couple ways. So, Ikaros having decided to go... No, Applety was the one that checked Agina early, right? Yeah, so Applety gonna have to double back to Agina. Actually, both of our runners checked Agina already, so both of our runners probably gonna have to double back to Desert Palace, unfortunately, after having already checked Agina. Applety is also not gonna have enough money for the Zora check, but is still gonna follow up on Waterfall Cave, as well as I assume they're probably gonna scout the item on Zora Ledge. This is a little bit interesting for Ikaros because she has not turned in her mushroom yet, and so the Saves coming the mushroom might be a little bit more appealing to her because she has that other bottle out of Mini Molorm Cave. I think if it was me, it's hard to say because, you know, it's hard to turn down a blue potion, right? And the bottle at the potion shop that you get from turning in the mushroom did come pre-filled with a blue potion, which can be pretty handy. So we'll see if she decides to, you know, take that blue potion or whether she decides to elect for the possibility of fake powdering. Looks like she is going to go ahead and use this water walk to Hobo. Actually, yeah, I was wondering why she didn't elect to check Hobo earlier when she was swimming from, you know, the Link's house area. But this makes perfect sense, actually, to use the water walk from Ice Rod Cave. Looks like Applety giving us our map check. So Desert Palace is a red crystal dungeon. So that is going to be required. I imagine that's going to be his next step over here. Looks like both of the other Light World dungeons are going to be pendants, so not necessarily required. So Ikaros, oh, I didn't see that on Appletea's side, but looks like both of our runners finding the Magic Cape on Hobo. Yet another potential sign of, it's an alternate means of accessing Agatha Tower, so... I believe when all is said and done, Ikaros is going to be a little bit behind of Applety going into Desert Palace, but has... and also has not turned in that mushroom. But other than that, both of our runners basically having checked the same set of locations in slightly different orders. And I imagine, just based on all the items that we've seen so far, I imagine there's a pretty good chance that we'll see something here in Desert Palace, but we'll have to see. One thing that could come into play here is, alright, and Ikaros, yeah, correctly confirming that Desert Palace is indeed required here. Applety picking up that fighter sword. So there's one item left in Desert Palace. One thing that could come into play here is Ikaros actually has a full magic bar, so whereas Applety is literally empty on magic, and the fastest way to take down Lanmo, you know, the boss here in Desert Palace, is going to be to use that fire rod. Ooh, Ikaros missing that torch dash. Yeah, you gotta kind of nudge up against the torch when you get that. Some runners will actually elect to do that from the bottom instead of the top. And I'm not sure whether we saw our second item in Desert Palace in the big chest. I guess we'll see that on Ikaros' side soon enough. If so, then we know we just have to get our crystal. If not, then I still like Appletea's play here of going to Lanmo first, as you potentially get to skip the right side entirely. Let's see. Oh yeah, of course, that had to be the small key there, so... Although, I guess, Ikaros is probably... Yeah, I imagine Ikaros is probably going to go back here. I didn't catch whether Applety actually opened the big chest. It looks like they did since they had the extra small key. So that's a slight optimization that could have been made for Appletea's side. He chose to... You know, he's choosing to rush Lanmo here in hopes that it might have the second item, which It does not. Hookshot is over here on right side. But I was going to say, you know, if the second item is on Lanmo, then there was no reason to actually open that that big chest, because all that's in the big chest is a small key guaranteed. Did see Apple Tea drink that blue potion. I think they did pick up a small magic, so that wasn't necessarily to have enough magic for lighting the torches, but as I said, you definitely want to use the fire rod here on Lanmo. Alright, gets 2 of them. Let's see if they can finish off this fight with 2 more fire rod shots. Oh, gets a very short hop there. And we'll have to finish this fight off with slashes or spins. Okay, nice. And that is going to be crystal number 1 for Apple Tea at the 20-minute mark and 50 seconds. Now, for his sake, I hope he goes back in for this hookshot, as that is definitely an important piece of the puzzle here, as that's going to let us access East Death Mountain here. Wouldn't be too crazy to skip it here for one item in Desert Palace, but I think it would be a bold move, I would say. So Apple Tea gonna go grab that hookshot, and I imagine, so, Icarus, yeah, picking up some extra hearts just for safety, and she's gonna go into her Lanmo fight. Let's see if she can manage to be a little bit more accurate with these shots. Choosing to shoot from below instead of above. You know, different runners have different preferences when it comes to this. Unfortunately gets hit by some of the invisible diagonal projectiles, and looks like she's gonna have to finish this fight off with slashes as well. So if you're Apple Tea here, the question is, do you go straight up the mountain, or do you want to... I think the other possibility is to get those 3 checks in Saha. Icarus deciding to let out the bee in her bottle. Got an extra sparkly crystal for Icarus. Alright, Apple Tea gonna go do that Lumberjack Cave check that he did not do earlier. But there is, so like I was saying, there is some consideration towards doing the 3 checks in the back of Saha's closet here. Neither of our runners have done that. Obviously, there's more density available on the mountain. The one problem is, if the hammer is, you know, out there somewhere, for example, lying in the closet of Saha, at Saha, and our progression is at, let's say our Rune Pearl is, you know, inside Tower of Hera, we could be having to look at an extra loop around the mountain. So, but both of our runners deciding to face the immediate density and go up the mountain. So, I mean, you never know. The hammer could just be up here on the mountain itself, like in Paradox Cave, and then everything would work out super nicely. We could also find our Rune Pearl here, and then our runners would have to start thinking about when they want to pull the trigger on Aga. And I will say, now that we have that hookshot, we have a lot of Dark World access, as we can hookshot across that Dark World River and get to a full clearable Skull Woods. We can even clear Thieves Town minus the big chest and get all the way to Hype Cave, so looking like this could be Aga for Dark World access. Both of our runners going to have that red mail. Always nice and comfy to see 2 early armor upgrades before you even get to the Dark World. Icarus going to skip out. Oh, oops. Accidentally hopped off there. But Icarus going to go ahead and skip out on the what's it called, the Spectacle Rock cave checks. Which, as we saw on Apple Tea's side, is nothing, I believe. I think there's arguments either ways. There's the mitts in Paradox Cave, so that is where... So we definitely don't... I guess the only way that Aga could be required now is if our Moon Pearl is on Pyramid Ledge, but that's looking like a pretty slim possibility at this point, and even if it is, I think you pretty much will last location that, because everything else is going to be faster to check than that. But it looks like we're going to have mid-Stark World access. And Ikaros, through skipping that Spectacle Rock check, as well as Applety, having to catch back up on that check of Lumberjack Cave, Ikaros is actually now ahead here in the Death Mountain checks. Both the runners just have to... the only thing remaining to clean up here is scouting Floating Island and then checking Spiral Cave. Applety having a little bit of trouble, failed with this bomb jump the first time through. Let's see if they get it this time. Nice. It looks like Floating Island is just a red rupee, so both the runners probably just gonna check Spiral Cave here and then probably head elsewhere. Those mitts do open up the possibility of checking King's Tomb, so I imagine that's probably gonna be a next step for both of our runners. I don't think we've checked Sick Kid on either side yet either. That could be interesting. And then of course, the main density that we have left here is the Eastern Palace area, so that's going to be Saha as well as going into Pendant Eastern Palace. Ikaros going to actually give us our Out of Logic Super Bunny check. Alright. So these two checks are going to be out of logic, but the name of Super Bunny Cave actually gets its name because you can do a Super Bunny glitch. You can actually collect these two chests out of logic without the Moon Pearl. Yeah, and since you don't have the mirror, you're going to have to go up here, and then falling into that pit puts you in the titular Super Bunny state, which does let you open chests and do a weird version of a sword slash with a kind of broken, janky animation. And Applety finding the hammer and the powder. So finding the hammer in Saha's closet, which I was referring to the situation earlier. That's not something you want to see, as it means that Tower of Hera is fully clearable here, fully in logic, and it's kind of a long trip back up the mountain to get over there, right? So Applety going to elect not to do that, which makes sense given the state that he's in. Going to elect instead for the 3 items, or 2 or 3 items that they can collect in Eastern Palace. Ikaros deciding to take this opportunity to check the Turtle Rock Medallion, which is almost today. Don't think we got a Darkhold map check, unfortunately, so we don't know whether that's required yet, but I imagine we'll get that later, once we have proper Darkhold access. Ooh, a nice hammer dash on Applety's side. That is going to be... a proper hammer dash through that room is actually going to be the fastest way. And Ikaros now going to be cleaning up the Spec Rock Cave check. And Applety going for Burner Dash there. Unfortunately, it took a little bit of extra time to set that up, so I don't actually know if it saved time. I think a Burner Dash there actually just comes up time neutral based on the magic usage. So it just depends on the amount of health you have left at the end of the dungeon, how much time it saves, but it can't save time. And we've got that Boundless Medallion that we just saw was required for Turtle Rock here in Eastern, so it looks like Eastern Palace is required here. That's good to see, that Applety's trip in here was not a waste already. That's of course assuming that Turtle Rock is a required dungeon, which I guess we don't know yet. And Ikaros finding her hammer. Ikaros still not having done the mushroom turn-in, actually, and with that real powder on hand, definitely not going to be save scumming the mushroom. So Ikaros deciding to follow up on that hammer, as well as, the other items that we have here, and going to be doing Hera. Yeah, this is a tough situation. I can understand both of these choices here from both of our runners. Apple finding the bombs in the big chest. I think, yeah, so they have one more chest they can check, the real big key chest. Unfortunately, it's also like the slowest check here in Eastern. So I can understand going up the mountain and doing Hera because it's kind of more suspicious from a logic perspective, but I think I also understand Apple going to Eastern Palace here because it's potentially 3 items as opposed to 2, and it's just closer, whereas, you know, having to do this extra trip up through Paradox Cave kind of feels bad. So I imagine neither runner feeling great about the fact that the hammer was left behind in the Hashala's closet. Ooh, what a terrible place for a dead rock to be. But Ikaros showing that she has some game knowledge, knows that you can powder the dead rocks if you really need to. And the mirror is over there on Ether Tablets. Looks like Apple didn't find anything else out of Eastern Palace, but as we know, that Bombless Medallion could be required. And Apple gonna go ahead and check out King's Tomb. I imagine they're gonna dash over to Sick Kid next, perhaps? But I'm feeling like our progression has a pretty good shot at being over here in Tower of Hera. And by progression, I really mean our Moon Pearl. Ikaro's probably going to do a Hera pot clip here. And Apple like I expected... Ooh, almost thought Ikaros got soft lock there. Looked a little bit suspect, but avoids the soft lock there in Hera pot. And Apple going to the Sick Kid check as expected, but it's only a piece of heart. But that hammer actually puts Magic Bat into logic, so I like the fact that Apple is chaining these 3 checks together. Magic Bat actually, I guess, is pretty suspicious as well. It's pretty early for Magic Bat to be accessible. This is a silly piece of music for Lamb, though. It's just 10 arrows, unfortunately, Magic Bat, so these 3 overworld checks not paying off for Apple unfortunately. And Ikaros unfortunately triggers the enraged phase of Moldorm and gets knocked off as a result. I think that happened because her first hit on Moldorm was a poke with the sword. Gonna have to try that fight again. In the meantime, Apple where is he going? Is this a check of... Ooh, okay. Apple actually gonna go and check what's on Zora. So you don't see taking this Whirlpool very often. And Ikaros finishing off that fight with the hammer. Very nice. And gets the first item, I believe, out of Tower of Hera, if I'm seeing the tracker correctly. Which means that I believe there might be an item in the basement. I wasn't actually paying attention, admittedly. Apple giving us our Zora check. Yeah, it looks like Ikaros is going back for the item in the basement. I think at this point, you are pretty priced into doing that. Of course, we do have Eastern Palace available, and Ikaros also hasn't done those overworld checks in terms of King's Tomb and Sick Kid and Magic Bat. I think the more and more this looks like a potential Agaseed, the more you want to, be a little bit more thorough here. Ikaros, unfortunately, yeah, okay, he puts on the Magic Cape. You can just slash those tiles as well, but Magic Cape does make this kind of trivial. You just get to hold the wall, and for whatever reason, your magic doesn't actually drain while you're holding a wall, because this game is really bad at doing multiple things at once. This is actually probably the most progression I've seen in a seed before Moon Pearl. Like, our runners better be thinking about what they should be doing as soon as they get the Pearl. And it's in Hera Basement. Alright, Ikaros, did you think ahead of time about what you're doing? Because you've got a billion options. You've got a full clearable Ice Palace, for example. We can do Thieves Town. We can do Skull Woods. Unfortunately, we didn't do our Dark World map check earlier, because that would have been actually really useful. This looks like heading to Skull Woods, Thieves Town, Village of Outcasts, kind of the standard play, which I think makes perfect sense. We have full clearable Swamp Palace as well. Another option actually would have been to take that Moon Pearl and dash over to Hookshot Cave. I wonder if Applety might actually take that approach. It looks like TR is going to be required. Ooh, that was a very fast map check. Didn't quite catch that, besides the fact that Turtle Rock is our other red crystal. I wonder if Applety... Hope Applety... Yeah, I have to imagine Applety is going to check the basement here in Hera. I wonder if Applety is going to take that Pearl, dash over that Hammer Bridge, check Hookshot Cave and Super Bunny Cave, because remember, they haven't checked Super Bunny Cave either. That's 6 items over there. There's also Spike Cave, which I'm surprised Ikaros didn't actually check Spike Cave. But I guess they kind of saw that Pearl and saw, a billion things on their tracker and lit up. But I wonder if Applety, with that Bombless Medallion, is maybe gonna... No, I mean... So he has the option of diving into Turtle Rock, is what I'm getting at, and he probably has some other priorities. Of course, we can't full clear Turtle Rock without that Ice Rod, and this might be too early to commit to a double dip of Turtle Rock. So I guess that is probably not something I would recommend. But this is very early access in Turtle Rock. I guess maybe not even that early, because we just have so many items here. Ikaros deciding to dive into the back of Skull Woods here. I imagine, yeah, this looks like it's a crystal dungeon. And I imagine after Skull Woods, he's going to be able to do, Village of Outcasts, Thieves Town, Smith Chain, a lot of efficient checks. Ooh, unfortunately, Applety also taking a fall against Moldorm. Okay, Ikaros taking a slow and steady approach to this Torches room. And Applety entering his refight against Moldorm. Takes it down, very nice. Ikaros, ideally you want the key from that Gibdo in case there's going to be an item left in the front of Skull Woods. I think we only saw one item here in the back of Skull Woods, but of course she didn't have the magic for a Fire Rod shot there, so gonna have to leave that key behind. Not the end of the world, of course. And I imagine she's not gonna have too many problems with this Mothula fight. Electing for spins here. Some people don't like using spins as it does reduce your movement speed, but spins do double damage here. It's only be couple of spin hits. Oh no, Applety electing to skip Hera Basement as pulling the trigger on Aga. This is a disaster. And he obviously knows from his tracker that there is an item in Hera Basement, but I guess was just feeling like they were reading the signs of the seed and thinking that Pyramid Ledge is the answer. Ooh, that is really costly. Because this is not a fast dungeon. This is going to take, some 5 minutes, right, for Applety to do this, and then he is not going to be happy. Ooh, Ikaros showing some nice knowledge. Mirroring out of the back of Skull Woods. And I think, yeah, she found the second item on Mothula, so mirroring out of Skull Woods is actually the faster way to get to Village of Outcasts as compared to, walking back through the interior of Skull Woods. So good pathing knowledge on Ikaros' part. Looks like they are going to head back up though, and catch up on some of these overworld checks. So Bumper Cave and potentially even Graveyard Ledge here. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, finds a bow there. So Ikaros really making the right calls here. Unfortunately, gets kind of wrecked on that screen, but luckily Red Mail, with the assistance of Red Mail, he didn't take too much damage there. Yeah, I don't know. If you're Applety, because like you're sitting at the entrance of Tower Para, you know your only two options left, because Applety has checked literally everything else, right? He has gone into Eastern Palace, whereas Ikaros didn't. Applety had checked everything else, and the only two options left were doing Aga to check Pyramid Ledge, and doing Hera Basement. And Hera Basement is definitely the faster of those two, right? So the only reason you would do this is just because you kind of have a really hard feeling that this is an Aga seed, and you just don't really don't like doing Hera Basement. I mean, it's not a fast check, right? It costs you a full minute to do, maybe a little bit more, but it's just gonna really work against Applety's favor here. Ooh, unfortunately, Ikaros getting a mirror bonk there. Yeah, not wasting. Okay, just decides to leave their Dark Portal behind, which is fine. It's not the end of the world. Ikaros? What's going on? Oh, did they? Okay, I wasn't sure exactly what was happening there, but okay, some extra health in King's Tomb. Electing to save and quit here. I wonder if they're going to go do some other dungeons, potentially Palace of Darkness and Eastern Palace? No, starting at Sanctuary again, so this looks like still continuing on. Just wanting to start Sanctuary again, I guess? Yeah, okay. So Applety, gonna take down Aga. Gonna be sorely disappointed when there's no Pearl on Pyramid Ledge. At least is going to have a mirror on hand to make getting back to Tower Para a little bit faster. But man, yeah, that's really rough. Alright, what's it going to be on Pyramid Ledge? But it could still be something really important. Just a piece of heart. Yeah. All right, Applety. You gotta face your fears. You gotta go back to Hera Basement, and yeah, you gotta mirror first. I have to imagine he's really kicking himself for this one. We'll have to see how he decides to play the rest of the seed, because you have to imagine after. I mean, it's always impossible to know what your opponent's doing, even if this was a race, right? I did mention the two racers did play these seeds asynchronously, but you have to imagine after making a play like that and then finding that you did Castle Tower for essentially zero benefit, you have to imagine that you're feeling pretty far behind. So we'll see if Applety decides to skip some checks that they maybe normally wouldn't, or maybe tries to go out of their way to spike something good in a awkward location. Yeah, it was looking really good for Applety too, because like he was a little bit behind going to the Dark World, but that was only because he had stepped into Pendant Eastern Palace and had gotten the required Bombless Medallion out of that, so he was actually in a pretty good spot as far as the seed overall was concerned before making that decision to leave, Hera Basement. But we'll see what he decides to do once he gets his Pearl here. I mean, he has plenty of time to think about it, so I would like to see him do either East Dark World Death Mountain, or at the very least Spike Cave. since it's literally right outside of Hera, right? It's the closest you're ever going to be to there. But Ikaros is going to be making very efficient work of these checks. So you remember that Applety, you know, checked Sick Kid and then Magic Bat, one after the other. Oh, Applety saving and quitting. And then clicking the pearl on his tracker. I wonder if he had clicked the pearl on his tracker first, if he would have saw those checks on the mountain light up. But neither of our runners deciding to do that, and Applety deciding to pay a trip to the shop? No. Okay, thinking that it was Hype Cave. Alright, yeah, we gotta step in the portal first. Applety, with a different approach towards Dark World, what if we're gonna get a map check here? As, you know, you've got a bunch of Clairbolt crystals. And honestly, this is definitely not over for Applety by any means, especially since he is starting at a different Dark World location. This could just come down to what order our runners decide to do their full Clairbolt crystal dungeons. You know, Applety could end up hitting go mode faster than Ikaros, especially since Ikaros eventually needs to get into Eastern Palace for that required Bombus Medallion. And that's probably not going to be high on her priority list, right? It looks like we have, so it's just Thieves Town that is a pendant dungeon. Everything else is required. So I wonder if Applety is going to start right here with Swamp Palace? Because you're already here, right? Ooh, and Ikaros finding a Tempered Sword at Stumpy. So far, really most of the seed seems to have been playing. I mean, Applety was off to an early minor lead, you know, through the beginning of the game with, especially in the escape sequence. Both of our runners, unfortunately, having to make an additional trip up the mountain early on after finding that hammer in Saha's closet. And, but afterwards, yeah, you know, after that decision to do Aga, Applety has been firmly behind, except for that one ace up his sleeve that he has, which is that Bombus Medallion. So besides that Bombus Medallion, we already know that Applety needs his bow from Buffer Cave, or unless there's some other bow somewhere else. Interesting that Ikaros decided not to... Did they already do... Okay, I was just thinking about a million things. I guess they did not elect to do Myth Chain, if I'm not mistaken. Either that or they did it really quickly. I think they're going to elect to do that later on, it looks like. So they didn't do Smith Chain, they didn't do Bombus Tablet. And this looks like they're going to check Pyramid Ledge and then probably head over to Pod and Eastern. Maybe not Eastern, though, because, you know, Pod is a priority because it's a crystal. It's a full clip of crystal. I'm actually surprised Ikaros didn't choose to just go into Swamp when she was in that area. I mean, it's a crystal dungeon. We have to do it at some point, and you're kind of walking right past it, right? It's kind of interesting. Applety finding the compass in the big chest, getting a little bit stuck on that ledge, unfortunately, but is deciding to check left side swamp. This is actually a pretty good play. A lot of so different runners definitely have different opinions on when or whether to check left side swamp, but this is definitely the kind of thing that can taking an interesting. Okay, looks like they are setting up for a diver down glitch, but took the wrong doorway. Okay. This is actually exactly the kind of location that a potential opponent could skip and, like, last locate, and that's the perfect kind. That's like the perfect kind of thing that could put you right back in the game, you know, after having lost, 5 minutes to doing Aga. But I like this thinking from Applety, especially since we already found the compass in the big chest. We know there's at least something guaranteed on left side swamp here. In the meantime, Ikaros heading into Palace of Darkness. We'll see. But I think besides that, I think this is going to come down to, let's see, we need to do Misery Mire, right? Because the only pendant dungeon in the Dark World is Thieves' Town. So we're going to need the... We still have the Ice Rod and the Flute outstanding, as well as potentially a medallion for Misery Mire. So I think Applety... So not finding anything on the first chest of left side, and just the map in the second chest, unfortunately, so that's going to be just a time loss if Ikaros decides to skip left side. But I can definitely still see many worlds where Applety takes this, because so we have a full clearable between our, both of our runners, assuming that Applety makes it to that bow, somewhere along the way, when they do Skull Woods. We have full clearable pod, which is Crystal. We have Ice Palace as well. And we've got Swamp Palace, which Applety is doing. And I have to imagine Ikaros is going to do all three of those, potentially, or at the very least, Swamp and Ice before heading into Eastern Palace. Then again, she might surprise us. She might just say, Eastern Palace is a pendant dungeon, but it's right here, so I'm just going to mirror and head in right now. Which would work really massively to her advantage, as, that Vamos medallion is there. But depending on the ordering of these dungeons here, Applety could decide to just go straight from here to, what's it called? To Ice Palace, and then, we could find the Ice Rod there, for example. That could send Applety into Turtle Rock, and maybe the Flute is in Turtle Rock. There's many different ways this could play out still. Okay, Applety, unfortunately not having the benefit of that Tempered Sword, which is hiding out on Stumpy, so I'm gonna have to use Master Sword here. Trying to set up some double spins. Nice, gets one. Can be a little bit tricky to set up the timing for those spins. If you don't have the right timing, you will drop your sword. And there's another sword in pod, so Ikaros, with all the offense here, has Golden Sword. Alright, Applety missing a couple of those double spin attempts earlier, but seems to have gotten down to a nice science. Very nice. And unfortunately doesn't have any magic for Fire Rod shots, so just gonna have to finish this fight off with a couple spins. Ikaros finding the pod big key. Interesting that she elected to go to the back of pod without the big key, actually. I wonder if that was a mistake on her part, because usually you want the big key on hand, right, to be able to open the big chest? Alright, Applety, what's it gonna be? Mirroring to the Light World, so this could be the Ice Palace play that I was talking about. I will say, with the Cane of Samaria on hand, Ice Palace is a pretty efficient dungeon. So I like this play from Applety. Ooh, unfortunately, Ikaros not making it across that bridge successfully, has to reset the room. And this time uses the Cane of Burna for good measure. So Ikaros actually taking a little bit of time loss in Palace of Darkness, if I'm not mistaken. Having to route a little bit awkwardly. Let's see what's here in Ice Palace. It kind of feels like we have early access to Ice Palace, but that's not actually... We kind of just have access to everything in this seed. So... And just the map and the big key. So Ikaros actually would have been fine if she had just skipped the big chest altogether and just went to Helma first. But did choose to play it safe. But unfortunately going to lose a little bit of time, potentially, to Applety if he decides to route pod differently. But Icaros is just gonna head over and head over to Helmasaur. Applety deciding to hit the crystal switch here. And hopefully we'll see a successful Icebreaker clip here. Nice, gets on second try. The main question for Icaros is whether he decides to make the play into Pendant Eastern, which I think if it was me, I wouldn't. You know, we still have Swamp Palace and Ice Palace, full clearable crystals, so you might as well do those first. It's not like Eastern Palace is terribly slow to get to. Looks like Applety not really finding anything in Ice Palace so far. Is going to take this tile drop-down route, which I do believe is... Okay, this is going to be... Well, I was going to say something about Ice Palace routing, but then it's too complicated to explain, which is why I have an hour-long video, so I'm not going to bore you guys with the details. Alright, Icaros entering her fight with Helmasaur. Runners will take different approaches to this fight. Some runners will elect to hold their sword out, as it makes the getting that hammer hitbox a little bit easier, but it does slow down your movement a little bit. Ooh, and nice. Icaros getting the Fireball despawn, so if you finish phase 1 and break Helmasaur's mask, all of the Fireball projectiles that are currently active will despawn, and finding these silver arrows on Helmasaur. So that's something that Applety is going to have for sure, as that is required to get to GT, so both of our runners are going to have silver arrows for the Ganon's Tower fight, and the flute is here in Ice Palace! Not exactly what I was envisioning in my hypothetical scenario. I was thinking maybe the Ice Rod was here in Ice Palace, but, you know, flute is definitely almost even better, as it's going to let you, you know, navigate around easier. It's going to give us the knowledge of whether Misery Mire is Bombos or another required medallion, so that's really good knowledge to have. And Icaros making the right call to dive into Eastern Palace. Nice cape dash through those cannonballs, too. So Icaros is going to pick up her required Bombos medallion, and she knows that it's required, actually, because she's already scouted the Turtle Rock medallion. So I'm sure she's going to be pretty happy to see that. Ooh, unfortunately, Applety not getting the right timing, or for that spin slash plus avoiding the puff of ice that drops from the ceiling. That can be a tricky setup to if you're not really confident on the timing. So he's going to have to finish this fight out with just slashes and spins, but looks like they'll get there just fine. Has plenty of health. I'd be worried if they had green mail, but of course we're on red mail, so you can afford to take a few hits. Just got to chase down this last puff, and there it is. Icaros going to be finishing. So Icaros actually has the option of getting the last item in Eastern Palace, which is on Armos. So they are deciding that Bombos medallion is not, you know, not enough to satisfy them here in Eastern. They want to be thorough, which, to be fair, has kind of played to their advantage so far. You know, they could have easily left behind Eastern Palace and not gotten this Bombos medallion until much later in the seed. But if there's nothing on Armos Knights, that is potentially some time, you know, that Applety can make up, because Applety is not touching Armos Knights for a long, long time. Okay, but Applety gets to activate their flute along with heading to Skullwoods and Village of Outcasts, hopefully grabbing their bow in the process. So I imagine... It's gonna be an interesting choice for them. They'll want to obviously clear out Skullwoods here, as it's, you know, Acquired Crystal Dungeon. Thieves Town is kind of the stickier issue because it is a pendant dungeon. And I imagine with the flute on hand especially, you kind of want to just bail here. Unfortunately, Icarus not getting that kill. You kind of want to bail on this, I would assume, and go just flute over to Palace of Darkness. After doing Skullwoods, of course. You can just mirror from Skullwoods. Although, I guess mirror after getting your bow from Bumper Cave. You can do Palace of Darkness, and then you can always come back and do Thieves Town and the rest of the overworld checks over here. But Applety actually checking Ped first. This is interesting. Usually most runners will do this by mirroring from the back of Skullwoods. I mean, you have to go there anyways because of Mothula, but if there's something here, it could be... Oh, okay. I was going to say. I wouldn't have been surprised if, like, our Ice Rod was there, actually, because, you know, Ped has actually been in Logic as soon as we got that bow from Bumper Cave. But it looks like Ped is not a consideration today. And Icarus is going to grab that green pendant. And I imagine they're probably going to want to turn in right now. Unfortunately, yeah, steps in that mirror portal as it was directly in their path. You can actually use a bomb to avoid taking the mirror portal if you want to. The invincibility frames from a bomb explosion will actually prevent you from taking the mirror portal. It looks like it's just bombs, so nothing behind Almost Knights. So those two checks probably going to be time saved on Appletea's side. And Icarus dashing out of here. So again, choosing to be pretty thorough here. So instead of electing to just, you know, rush over to Swamp Palace and Ice Palace, which are full clip crystals, he is electing to make the best possible use of her current location in the overworld. Now imagine this is going to be a check to Catfish, right? Yeah. Because if it was anywhere else, you'd probably just save and quit. I will say this is a little bit more appealing for Icarus because she has not checked Zora yet, whereas Applety has. So she does have something else to clean up here, and she also hasn't done that mushroom turn-in actually, so this is pretty good efficiency in terms of cleaning up these outstanding checks for Icarus. And I don't think, yeah, there was nothing in any of these three checks. We saw all of them, I believe. I've already seen all of them. This is giving Applety a little bit more time to potentially get back into this race. Okay, Applety going into their Moth fight. Starts the fight off with a... tries to start the fight off with a spin. Unfortunately doesn't get it. Okay, each spin is going to do 25% of Moth's health. Flashes are going to do half that amount. And Moth kind of bullying Applety a little bit, but finishes the fight kind of in around the same time that Icarus did, if memory is serving correctly. So our runners are tied up at 3 crystals, or no, not tied up actually. We have Applety with a 1 crystal lead here. It's actually a little bit hard for me to tell who has the advantage right now. Icarus is up a clear of Palace of Darkness, but Applety is up a clear of Swamp Palace and Ice Palace. Apple no longer has that kind of ace in his pocket as far as the Bombos medallion is concerned, because Ikaros does have that, deciding to be thorough, right, with these checks. But I will say the more thorough that Ikaros is with these overworld checks, the more time we could potentially lose if Apple T just kind of follows, you know, the route and just goes to Clarable Crystal Dungeons, and he is gonna get this bow right here. And Ikaros still not heading to Swamp or Ice. Oh, is heading to Ice, but just a different way than I expected. Both of our runners making use of this Whirlpool, I think. Not something you see every day. I don't know if this is faster than just starting from Link's house and then going south. But some nice game knowledge, regardless. Apple T probably running into some cape cooldown issues there. When you the first time you switch to the cape, after not having used it or after having quick swapped off of it, there is a half-second cooldown where you can't use the cape. Can often catch people off guard, including myself. Okay, but Apple T now has that bow on hand. Probably going to check off Graveyard Ledge as you're really close to that area. And from there, I imagine he's going to loot over to Palace of Darkness, right? That's definitely priority here. It's either that or just head to the Mire area to, you know, just check what that medallion is. Unfortunately, Ikaros spending a long time on this last Pengator. Sword Beam's only going to do fighter sword damage. We got a kind of iridescent puke green color for the ice on Ikaros' side. The crazy palette shuffle. Ikaros also deciding to hit the crystal switch here, so both of our runners electing to take the same strategy in terms of crystal switch for Ice Palace. We'll see if she also decides to take the same route that Apple T did. I do believe there was only a compass at the Iced Tea chest, so potentially skippable, although I'm not sure if there was an item on Cold Stairs, so I'm not 100% sure. Alright, Apple T in Village of Outcasts, which is actually not what I expected. Sleep's Town is a pendant dungeon, whereas Palace of Darkness is required. You can only flute back here. And it's roughly the same time to flute back here from Graveyard Ledge versus, you know, dashing. So it's not like you're really giving up any time. So this is a little bit surprising to me on Apple T's side that they're not just rushing straight to Palace of Darkness. I wonder if they're heading into Thieves Town though. This could just be the front 4 chests. That's often a common way of handling Pendant Thieves Town. We'll see how many items there are. There's one. And Ikaros taking a little bit of a different approach, so routing through freezer chests instead of taking the tile drop down. And they do have the big. She does have the big key on hand, so if she wants to, yeah, she can check the big chest next. I don't remember where the last item was though. Oh, it was the flute on big chest. Okay, so she's actually going to gain a little bit of time here on Ice Palace routing. Not having to check Iced Tea at all. Okay, Apple Tea, there's the big key, so only one chest left in the front of Thieves Town here. We'll see if Apple Tea decides to continue. Looks like there's 2 items in the back, and Apple Tea decides that he's not wanting to commit to that, which I fully understand. Taking a little bit of a roundabout route to get to that Bumble Shack. Alright, Ikaros... Oh! Almost gets caught in the same predicament as Apple Tea, but just manages to get that spin off before getting hit by that icicle. Fate really smiling on Ikaros there with that, how that fight worked out, actually. And was able to clear it out much faster due to having that gold sword. Apple Tea... Okay, correctly remembering that if you want to do D-game, you gotta do it before picking up any followers. And probably want to do hammer pegs along with Smith Chain if you are going to do hammer pegs. So Apple Tea's spending time on these overworld checks. again, I'm surprised at doing these rather than rushing over to Palace of Darkness, but there's certainly a lot of efficiency, and if I remember correctly, Ikaros has not checked Smith Chain or Bombos Tablet. And Ikaros not activating their flute just yet. Wanting to just head over into Swamp Palace. And Applety, yep, committing to this full set of overworld checks here. So we're gonna get probably Smith Chain, and I imagine Shovel Dig Spot as well, which I think we've already seen that on Ikaros' side. And Bombless Tablet, I imagine, as well. I'm really curious what that Misery Mire Medallion is going to be, though. That will determine whether we are 1 item from Go Mode or 2 items from Go Mode for both of these runners. I'm also really curious what's up on Dark Death Mountain, as that has been open for a long time, and there's like a treasure trove of six items up there, plus Spike Cave, and we even have access into, you know, some amount of Turtle Rock. So I almost wonder if this is going to be a seed where we just find the ice rod on Laser Bridge, and that could end up getting pretty interesting, because that's always a tough decision to make in terms of when do you want to pull the trigger on going into Turtle Rock without the Ice Rod, right? But it could be anywhere. Ice Rod could be on Purple Chest, could be on Bombless Tablet. I feel like that's really going to be, you know, pending Misery Mire Medallion, I feel like that Ice Rod location is going to be the key to whoever makes it out of this race, whoever ends up ahead once we're in Go Mode. If you're enjoying this race so far, I would highly encourage you to give both these runners a follow. I have links to their Twitch channels in the description of this video. And Ikaros deciding to make the same play as Applety and check left side swamp. So checking these 2 chests, same way that Applety did. So no time gained or lost here. Although I guess Ikaros gained a little bit of time since they did not go into the wrong doorway when doing their diver down setup. Looks like Applety just going to take the slow and safe way of walking this chest over. So no invisible chest shenanigans, or... okay, maybe invisible chest shenanigans here. So you can actually leave the purple chest behind as long as you mirror in roughly the appropriate spot, and that'll allow you to dash over here a little bit faster. And we'll see. Our Ice Rod is somewhere on one of these checks. Or potentially a medallion. Just a heart container. I have to imagine at this point, Applety needs to head over to Palace of Darkness though, right? Like, you can't just put off your full clearable crystal forever. I guess the only other possibility is to just peek at the Mire Medallion, just for the knowledge of what it is. But deciding to head over here... okay, wants a potion first. Totally understandable. Although doesn't seem like you would need a potion for Palace of Darkness. I wonder if they are making a play into Misery Mire instead? Where are they going? They are! Well, there's definitely an argument to this in terms of, like, say your Ice Rod is in one of the first checks in Pod, you want to know whether you're in go mode, so you want to at least check this medallion, and it's Bombos, so we're literally just down to an Ice Rod hunt. And at this point, it could be, yeah, it can be in any number of places. It could be, so we know it's not in Pod, we know it's not in Skullwoods, or we know it's not in Swamp Palace. It could be in the back of Thieves Town. It could be in Misery Mire itself. We're about to see Checkerboard Cave on Appletea's side. But I feel like the most likely location is up on Death Mountain somewhere, right? That's gotta be the most density that we haven't seen. Which is crazy because if it is there, like if it's on Hookshot Cave, or I guess we've already seen Super Body Cave, so we know it's not there. But if it's in Hookshot Cave, or if it's in Spike Cave, or even Turtle Rock, like, we could have had access to that Ice Rod immediately after stepping out of Hera, actually. But of course, both of our runners did decide to just save and quit after finding that Moon Pearl. So Appletea choosing to do Misery Mire first before Palace of Darkness, and Icarus having, again, with that sword advantage, having much much easier time on this Argus fight, just being able to use single slashes. So that is going to make up a little bit of time. Appletea, of course, does have their Tempered Sword that they got from Stumpy, and once they get over to Palace of Darkness, they'll have their Gold Sword as well. Assuming they're not going to already be in go mode by then, which is not guaranteed, actually. That Ice Rod could be sitting here in Misery Mire. Very nice finish to Phase 2 of Argus by Icarus. Yeah, I think Appletea's decision, yeah, as I said, going to Misery Mire first before Palace of Darkness, I mean, I think I would have expected Appletea to just do Palace of Darkness before all of the overworld checks that he did, but I think checking the Misery Mire area is, you know, there's a lot of merit to it. Like I said, you want that medallion knowledge to see if you're in go mode or not. If you're already checking the medallion and you know you can full clear this dungeon, kind of might as well do it while you're here. That way you don't have to take an extra flute back to the area. Icarus gonna check Bombos Tablet and get those 10 arrows, but I don't think they've done Smith Chain yet, if I'm not mistaken. This looks like they might be going to the mountain, actually. Okay, no. Going to Sanctuary. Ooh, unfortunately, Appletea taking 3 hits from that jelly. Okay, and Icarus... Oh, needs to activate their flute still. Yeah, okay. Forgot that they hadn't activated that yet, since they got it a while ago, but then decided that they wanted to do Swamp Palace before activating, which made perfect sense at the time. If Icarus wants to... I imagine Icarus... the first priority for Icarus is probably going to be just fluting over to the Mire area. I will say, if they want to continue being really thorough with their overall checks, this is the opportunity for them to do Smith Chain, assuming they haven't done it already. Alright, so Appletea routing through Misery Mire here, looking for the remaining item. It looks like they've already found one of them, and decided to skip out on Cutscene Chest. It looks like they're going to try and delay that. That is the, you know, the slowest of these remaining checks here in the dungeon, besides the boss, of course. Ooh, some nice knowledge knowing that you can powder that pot over there. There is a bunny bean underneath the pot, but you don't actually have to lift the pot if you want to get the... You want to turn that bunny beam into a fairy. Okay, and Icarus confirming that it's just an Ice Rod hunt here. Appletea gonna open the map chest, and it is the Mirror Shield. Okay, that's gonna help in Turtle Rock, potentially. And Appletea gonna get to skip Cutscene Chest altogether, so their route working out nicely here. So that could be some time saved if Icarus decides to check Cutscene Chest. Oh, unfortunately, Appletea wanted to powder that anti-fairy, but instead gets knocked around a bunch. Icarus about to grab that bottle, but decides they've already got two blue potions on hand. Probably don't need bee in a bottle. Appletea a little bit off on that Mario block placement, but gets it down. So let's see. I know this race has been really hard to call, but since we're kind of converging here in the same place, I feel like Icaros is ever so slightly ahead. Of course, Appletea is way ahead in terms of Misery Mire, but Appletea still has to clear out Palace of Darkness. And I do feel like that is... well, maybe it's on par with the time it takes to clear Palace of Darkness. It really, a lot of it actually depends on whether Icaros decides to delay Cutscene Chest or whether she decides to do it along the way. I will say she has been mostly favoring the approach of being thorough and conservative with the checks, so she might elect to check Cutscene Chests on the way through the dungeon after Compass Chest. Okay, Appletea making nice use of that cape, staying safe here. And just needs 8 arrows to finish off Victorious' second phase. We're taking a bunch of damage from that slime. Which, yeah, actually makes sense, as they already have to wait for a full magic refill, so it's not like you're gonna have to wait any extra time on the cutscene, so very nice. Strats like that are actually not something that I often imagine seeing from, you know, Fighter Sword bracket players. But, you know, that's the kind of thing where if you can sacrifice a few hearts and gain some time, you're like, it can definitely be worth it. So props to Appletea. Alright, so here's the pod play from Appletea, finally. So he's going to be getting his gold sword. We'll see if he manages to route pod a little bit differently. There is some potential for some time save, as Icaros did have to go back and forth a little bit, since they left their big key behind. And Icaros is going to be checking cutscene chests, so this is going to be... oh, no, okay. Just going to be taking a different route towards the lobby, okay. Never mind. Yeah, a lot of runners will elect to go right 2 screens from Compass Chest to get to this lobby instead of going down and then right 2 screens. But either way, you'll end up at the same place. Pretty dark palette for Misery Mire, I have to say. Okay, so Icaros is going to take the same route through Misery Mire, so not really that much difference here. I have to imagine Appletea is going to take longer to finish Palace of Darkness than it is going to take Icaros to finish the rest of Misery Mire here. So yeah, I like Icaros' position here. She hasn't done... she hasn't stepped into Thieves Town, of course, and she hasn't done Smith Chain, I believe. But I imagine she's... I guess it's really going to be up to how she feels about making the call to head up the mountain without the ice rod on hand. I think on Appletea's side, it's going to be more obvious for him, because literally the only thing left that he hasn't done is the back of Thieves Town. Everything else is on the mountain. It's the back of Thieves Town and I guess Armos Knights, right? He's even already checked Ped. So I imagine once Appletea's done here in Pod, he's going to feel more incentivized to pull the trigger on heading up the mountain and just saying, hey, I've done everything else that's, you know, reasonable. Oh, Icaros. Is that an accidental potion drink? I have to wonder. But yeah, Appletea's gonna have done everything else that's efficient. And I have to imagine that the ice rod is gonna be up there, right? On the mountain? I do wonder how it's gonna feel for both of these runners if, you know, the ice rod is just sitting there on Hookshot Cave. As like I mentioned, that is something we could have just dashed over and checked immediately after Tower of Hera. Okay, let's see how Ikaros decides to handle this fight with Vitreous. She does have silver arrows on hand, but also has gold sword, so kind of take your pick. Using say pretty safe with the magic cape, and gets a 1 cycle, looks like. Unfortunately, going to take a little bit of extra time on phase 2. Slashes with the gold sword do a bunch of damage, but usually it's faster to just load those arrows into Vitreous, especially if you aggressively run at Vitreous like Apple-T does, and especially if you have the silver arrows, as that's only going to be 2 arrow shots to kill Vitreous, but... So as expected, Ikaros going to be a little bit ahead here. But it all depends on where she decides to go next. Is she going to make the play to go up the mountain, or is she going to finish out? Is she going to dive into Thieves Town? Looks like it's Thieves Town. And I have to imagine that Apple-T is going to be able to finish Helmasaur before Ikaros finishes, or maybe at the same time that she finishes the front of Thieves Town, but could Ikaros be considering Smith Chain here? Ooh, nice attempt at a cape dash there by Apple-T, unfortunately bonks against the wall. And Apple-T... Oh wait, Apple-T hasn't actually finished the Checkson Pod. Okay, I actually wasn't paying enough attention there. I apologize. So Apple-T getting the big key early from the vanilla big key chest, I believe, and deciding to rush Helmasaur first, which makes perfect sense. You know, if Helmasaur has your Ice Rod, you could just get to skip the rest of the dungeon, so I like this routing by Apple-T, actually. But I imagine they're going to go back in to get the remaining items, as there are still 3 left, I believe? But he's probably going to be pleased to see those silver arrows at the very least. Now, how's Ikaros going to feel about the back of Thieves Town here? Yep, Apple-T, as expected, going back into Palace of Darkness, and Ikaros choosing to clear out Thieves Town for 2 additional items. This could get interesting, because I don't think she has checked Ped. I think it was Apple-T that, yeah, Apple-T has it marked off on his tracker. I don't think we've gotten a Ped check from Ikaros. So if she finds the 2 items in, like, the next 2 chests, it's not even clear that she would leave, as, defeating Blind would put Pedestal on the table for Ikaros. Of course, we know that, from when Apple-T checked it, we know that's nothing. But if the Ice Rod is here in Thieves Town, Ikaros will be off to a very sizable advantage here. But if it's not, this could be exactly what Apple-T needs. Right, there's 1 item. It's just 10 arrows. I have to imagine that it's Apple-T here. You're not going to the back of Thieves Town anymore. You're just heading straight up the mountain right after this. Right, Apple-T finds his gold sword. Kind of curious that we had on Ikaros's palette shuffles, we had like a neon green Ice Palace and a really dark Misery Mire, but then Thieves Town is just like vanilla colors, but actually pretty bright. Okay, Apple-T, yeah, gonna be able to skip the big chest, so a few seconds of time saved there by routing. Alright, now let's see what the remaining item here is. Okay, to be determined. And I imagine at this point, even if the big chest has the other item here, Ikaros is maybe priced into defeating Blind here for that pendant. And Apple-T's making the play to go up the mountain. I like this. Okay, the last item is on blind, so yeah, Icaros definitely going to finish the boss. And I don't really like her chances here. As Appletea's, you know, got... we already know that Super Running is nothing, but we've got 4 checks in Hookshot Cave coming up, and then I have to imagine Applety wants to dive into Turtle Rock here. Okay, Icaros entering the blind fight. A little bit off on the first 3 hits, but I'm not really worried. He's got plenty of health here. Okay, Applety is choosing to take the Turtle Rock portal here. This is a little bit slower if you want to check all of the items in Super Bunny Cave and Hookshot Cave before going into Turtle Rock, which you better check all of those at this point. You don't know where Ice Rod is. Alright, so Icaros does not find the Ice Rod on blind. And Appletea's just diving into Turtle Rock? You madman. Does Hookshot Cave... What did Hookshot Cave ever do to you, Appletee? It's right there, it's 4 items! I can't believe this. This is crazy. I mean, granted, there's a pretty good chance that the Ice Rod is in here too, but yeah, this is bold. Okay, Icaros taking this chance to clear out. Oh, I guess she already checked. She already did Smith and Hammer Pegs, but still needs to do Purple Chest and Double Dig Spot. It looks like. Okay, Appletee taking the nice routing through these front Turtle Rock checks, making good use of the Magic Mirror. And Icaros, is she going to the mountain now? No. Oh yeah, of course she needs to do Purple Chest. Duh. Okay, this is pretty interesting though, because now if the Ice Rod is in Hookshot Cave, then maybe Icaros gets to it first. And that's going to be really bad for Appletee. The other place it could be in is Spike Cave, which would be extra spicy. But yeah, if it's on Laser Bridge, then Appletee kind of has this. Icaros looks like she is going to continue with her, playstyle of being a little bit more conservative here, and is going to check Spike Cave first. And Appletee finds the Ice Rod in Turtle Rock, in the Chain Chomps chest, I believe, and is in go mode at 132.45. I can't believe he skipped Hookshot Cave. Skipping Spike Cave, I totally understand. Looks like if you want to be thorough like Icaros does, I think that's pretty valid too. But yeah, this madman skipping Hookshot Cave and just finding the Ice Rod. Looks like they are not skipping. Oh, is this Vanilla Big Key chest? This might be Vanilla Big Key. Yeah, there it is. Okay, nice. So Appletee firmly in a commanding lead here. And I have to imagine Icaros. Ooh, I don't know if is mirroring here faster than climbing back up. I actually don't know. I've never been in this. It's like so rare to be in this situation where you want to walk from Spike Cave to Turtle Rock and Hookshot Cave. I almost wonder if it's faster to not mirror there. Yeah, but I have to imagine Icaros is going to check it into Hookshot Cave because, she's been playing it thorough. And I don't think she is mad like Appletee is. I mean, she could prove me wrong. Both runners could have the same thinking here. But, unfortunately, that's going to be a little bit more time lost to Appletee here. And does, fortunately, have a blue potion on hand to use that medallion. Applety choosing to check Mimic Cave even though he's in go mode. I guess. Apparently didn't check the chest either. Okay, maybe kind of just autopiloted into Mimic Cave. That can happen sometimes. You know, you're just doing a dungeon, especially Turtle Rock, since doing Turtle Rock in go mode is sometimes not that much different than, you know, doing it normally. So probably just an autopilot. Applety? You need another key. Okay, I mean, your other key could be on Laser Bridge, but it also could not be. And that chest doesn't take that much time to open. Okay. Alright, so Icaros is now going to head into Turtle Rock here. Both of our runners having essentially full cleared this seed, besides Applety having skipped Armos Knights and Blind, I guess, basically. Icaros, I don't think skipped anything, really. So being really thorough. And Applety finds the other key on Laser Bridge. Okay. Fate smiling on Applety today, it looks like. Never punished, always rewarded. Nice. And unfortunately, Icaros going to lose a few seconds here on this Turtle Rock route. It is a little bit faster if you check the Fire Rod lock checks first and then use the mirror. Not that much faster, but it is slightly faster, I believe. And Applety having a pretty easy time with Phase 1 of Trinex. Of course, it's just 3 gold rod slashes, or 3 gold sword slashes per head. Setting up for a spin on Phase 2. And finishes it off just fine. And Icaros correctly not mirroring from here, as if you're going to the rest of the dungeon, you actually do want to walk back through the rollers. And that is crystal number 7 for Applety at the 1 hour and 37-minute mark. So he just needs to head to Ganon's Tower, and we'll see what route through the Ganon's Tower basement he chooses. I will say in Applety's shoe, if you're in Applety's shoes, first of all, you're probably feeling pretty good that your Ice Rod was not in Hookrad Cave, and that your required key wasn't in Crystal Roller Room. But what I was really going to say is, I imagine he probably felt pretty bad at leaving the Moon Pearl in Hera, you know, and doing a non-required Aga. But I think as the seed went on and on, I think, you know, things started to work out more and more for him. Ooh, Icaros having a little bit of an awkward situation with this Pokey. And Applety looks like taking a Hope Left route, if I am not mistaken. We'll see if Icaros can remember to skip past Mimic Cave here. It's down to just execution from here on out. Applety opening these 4 chests in the Stalfos room. Icaros having a little bit of trouble with these Pokies, unfortunately. And is electing to skip the big chest. This is something you can do. How safe it is does depend on how many small keys you have. I do think if you have 0 keys on hand, it is a little bit more risky to do this. we'll see where the keys are here. I don't remember if there was... Wait, but there was a key in the big chest, actually. Yeah, because Apple-T skipped this. Okay, so Icarus is going to get funneled back there immediately and has to, yeah, nose right away. Okay. So, unfortunate, actually. Apple-T having a little bit of trouble with these Gibdos. Gold Sword does clean them out pretty quickly. And Apple-T actually choosing to do a route that I haven't seen that much in this tournament, actually. A lot of times I see people do Hope and then full left, but I believe Apple-T, after doing the Stalfos room, decided to head back to Compass. There's definitely a lot of merits to this Ganon's Tower basement routing as well. So I wonder if this is something that one of their mentors talked to them about, or if that's something they've just, decided on their own. It might seem a bit wasteful that they're, redoing this room, twice. But one of the advantages of this Ganon's Tower basement routing is that it doesn't really lose that hard to any other route. In terms of, if you do Hope left, you can potentially lose a lot of time versus someone who, rushes to Compass Room. So that is one benefit of this particular Ganon Tower basement routing path. But if Icarus decides to go full left or Hope left, it looks like she might be able to gain a little bit of time here. But unfortunately, Icarus taking the safety door here, I mean, I definitely will never blame runners from taking this, safety checkpoint, especially if they're not confident with the Trinex fight. But we've got a Mirror Shield for Laser Bridge here. We've got Gold Sword for Trinex, and unfortunately, Icarus really needs to push the speed here. All right, Apple-T now into Rando Room in Ganon's Tower. We called that because we don't come into this in the regular speed runs. We only do it in randomizer, and the big key is over there. So Apple-T going to begin his climb of Ganon's Tower. Ooh, a nice hookshot strategy for that first room in the climb. And does a pretty simple strategy of holding the railing there to manipulate the mimics. A very simple but effective strategy for mimics too, very nice. And Icarus getting a spin. Not sure if that was intentional or not. Looks like this fight is going a little bit south, actually. But does take down that first head. Unfortunately gets some ice on the floor to deal with. Ooh, it unfortunately gets kind of like a fake hit there. Hopefully doesn't take a death here. Okay. And Apple-T playing it a little bit safe here, is only on 4 hearts. You definitely don't want to die here in Ganon's Tower. He does have 2 blue potions though, so I don't know if that was 100% necessary, but better safe than sorry, right? Right, and that is crystal number 7 for Icarus at the 1 hour and 43 minute mark. As Apple-T continues through the Ganon's Tower gauntlet. Making pretty liberal usage of the hookshot here. A lot of people like to have, either the arrows or the fire rod out through these rooms to try and use those projectiles to take out some of these enemies, but it looks like Apple-T wants to have the hookshot out to stun them in place so that they stop moving around and then finish them off with the sword. Exactly like that, actually. I guess I didn't realize this, but the stun prize is full magic, so you actually get to have that benefit as well. It's one of the more rare stun prizes, so definitely a nice one. Unfortunately, doesn't get any of those silver arrow hits on Land Mode 2. And gonna just fall back to using sword slashes, yeah. Okay, Icaros heading into Hope Room, and yeah. Icaros? Can't go to Compass Room without a key, so I hope, for her sake, she's not doing Tile Room. Okay, she isn't. Okay, good. So we'll see if Icaros decides to just continue on left here, in which case she'll gain a little bit of time. Or if she decides to take the same, back and forth route that Apple T did. Apple T not getting the quick strat here in Wizrobes 2, but finishes it out. And uses a fall down strat in Torches 1. Has plenty of health to spare, so no problem with that. And looks like Icaros is going to continue on here. So going to be able to skip, that time spent getting to the Compass Room on the right side of Ganon's Tower. Okay, Apple T, yep, not needing anything from those chests. You already got Gold Sword and Silver Arrows, so there's not anything else you need here. The only possible thing that you could want is a half magic, but we've got 2 blue potions. I'm not really concerned here. Right. The rematch with Moldorm. Let's see if Apple T can avoid falling this time in the refight. Very nice. Uses two dash hits. And a nice bonk by Icaros to get past that Fire Snake, but unfortunately it catches up with her. Okay, Apple T, unfortunately gets hit by that bumper, but the second dash looks okay, and Icaros is about to find her big key in the Rando Room. Let's see how Apple T does with this refight of Aghanim. Yeah, that was a bit of an awkward position, being trapped in the corner there. I don't know, unfortunately only got the single there as well, but Hold Steady does it. That was a very nice pattern. Oh, unfortunately misses the third hit. Okay, but still finishes it off on that cycle. Nice. Okay, Icaros taking a much safer approach through this room. Unfortunately, it still gets tagged by that Anti-Fairy a bunch of times. Yeah, it can be really awkward to maneuver past those crystal switch pegs as well. Looks like using a similar strat for Mimics 1. Ooh, almost a very fast strat for Mimics 2. I like that. And Apple T going to drop into their fight with Ganon. It would be a pretty straightforward fight with Gold Sword and Silvers on hand. Not to mention 2 blue potions. Yeah, gets the cape out just in case they want to use some invincibility. Yep, got plenty of magic to spare here. And does a bunch of extra hits just for good measure. Icaros is into their Ganon's Tower Gauntlet. Apple T is now into Phase 3 of Ganon Fight. Looks like Icaros also electing to have Hookshot out here, so both runners taking similar approaches towards the Gauntlet. And Apple T looks like they're going for the Torch Glitch setup. Nice, they've got it. Crazy to see so many full magics spawn in the Gauntlet there for Icaros. Okay, there's 2 silver hits. Apple T needs to relight the torch. Okay, nice. Holds in to avoid falling, and finishes the fight with a nice double hit. Nicely done, Apple T. And they are going to finish out this seed with a final time of, it looks like, 1 hour, 49 minutes, and 16 or 17 seconds. Nice job, Apple T. Let's watch Icaros finish the rest of this Ganon's tower climb. Unfortunately, also missing all of the silver arrow hits on Lammo 2. Can be tricky if you don't have like a specific timing to do it. Now that's the kind of thing that's very hard to do just by feel. And Icaros not having a good time with this Lammo 2 fight. Okay, yeah, let's get these slashes in. That shooter not making things easy at all in the bottom left of that room either, but finishes the fight. Okay, very nice Wizrobes 1. Let's see if they can do a little bit better for Wizrobes 2. There's the... Oh, but unfortunately, lets the Samaria block travel a little bit too far upward, I believe. Okay, he gets across the bridge, okay. On to Torches 2. Ooh, using a little bit of a different strat. This is kind of the... this is a strat that you would use if you don't have the Fire Rod, actually, so... It's good practice. This is some very, I have to say, this is some very, tension/anxiety inducing music for the Ganon's Tower climb. I don't think I would want this to be playing during my climbs. I'd be too stressed out. Okay, down to just the last handful of screens in the climb. Keeping all these chests because of course we don't need anything else. Looks like Icaros is going to take a little bit of a different approach to this Moldorm refight using spins. Oh, but unfortunately gets knocked off. I think she could have held on there if she had just reacted quickly enough and held right during that knockback, but I think she was trying to move away from Moldorm to avoid getting hit there. But nice. Finishes it really fast on the second attempt. Nice hookshot clip. And a cape dash, let's go. Gotta love seeing the best item in the game used. Alright, and here we have our fight with Aghanim. This is some wild music here. I haven't been paying attention to what, like, MSU pack or anything this is, but this is a wild fight music. Ooh, very nice. Gets a double there. Oh, just misses there, though. That's unfortunate. Oh, and just misses there, too. You had that one. Okay, but finishes off the fight there. He's gonna have a little bit less magic going into the Ganon fight compared to Applety, as she did use you know, some of that magic for the cape strat in the mini Helmasaur Beetle room. So I imagine, and she doesn't have those 2 blue potions on hand either, so I imagine she is going to want to just avoid using the cape for phases 1 and 2. At least avoid using it too much. But she's got plenty of health. So even if she tanks a few hits, should be just fine. Okay, there's phase 1. Oh, playing it safe on phase 2. I think needs around 4 more hits for phase 2. We're gonna be able to get in this next cycle, hopefully. Oh, takes a hit there. Was that enough, or does she need 1 more? I lost track. Okay, she did get it, so this is on to phase 3 now. We've got kind of a lovely puke green floor for the Ganon fight today. Looks like Ikaros is setting up for the torch glitch, like Apple-T did. Okay, yeah, dodge that fire bat. Nice, gets a torch glitch. It's just gonna be 4 silver hits. There's number 2. A little bit of jumping on the stream. Takes a hit there, but should still be fine. Oh, I'm gonna take an extra cycle there. Needs to relight the torch. You've got this, Ikaros. Keep it together. Oh, okay, that was very close. Breathe. Okay, okay. Got a little bit dicey there at the end. But nice job finishing out the seed. Looks like Ikaros is going to be finishing with a time of 1 hour, 55 minutes, and looks like 35 seconds. So GG's to both of these runners. As I mentioned before, if you enjoyed watching this race, highly recommend giving both these runners a follow on Twitch. And if you want to see more Go Mode Podcast matches, definitely check out the Discord channel of Go Mode Podcasts. There are still a handful of matches that still have to be played. I don't believe we've gotten any races in the finals, but those will start happening, and those are definitely matches you don't want to miss, so be sure you're paying attention to those. Yeah, this is a really interesting one to watch. I was pretty nervous for Apple-T when he made that decision to leave behind the leave behind the Moon Pearl so early on in the seed and do an unnecessary climb of Agus Tower instead. But you know, good work on him. You know, he managed to, well, you know, come back from that deficit and actually win by about 6 minutes. So very nice job. Pretty crazy that as soon as we had Darkhold access, we could have actually just gone straight to I guess not on Ikaros' side, because they hadn't gone into Eastern Palace, but from Apple-T, they already had their Balmos Battalion out of Pendant Eastern Palace. So if they wanted to, they could have actually just walked right from Tower of Hera and gone and hopefully checked Hookshot Cave, but they could have just gone straight into Turtle Rock and cleared it. Of course, they would have only had Master Sword, so that would have been a much more difficult dungeon. They wouldn't have had the Mirror Shield either, so I don't know how comfortable they would be in terms of doing that, and might also not be priority for them in terms of, you know, if you've got the choice of Turtle Rock without an Ice Rod versus a bunch of other full clearable crystal dungeons, you might not be chomping at the bit to dive into Turtle Rock. But crazy to think that if you did, you could have just finished it right there and then as your first Dark World dungeon. That's not something you see every day. But that was definitely an interesting seed to watch. Both these runners taking some pretty different approaches in terms of routing. Ikaros, as I mentioned, was in general more thorough in her checks. Overall, you know, deciding to do the back of Thieves Town, and kind of left nothing behind. Although I guess she did leave Purple Chest out of her initial and Balmos Tablet out of her initial, you know, Dark World loop. But she did end up cleaning up basically everything before heading into Turtle Rock. But Apple-T's routing, you know, worked out pretty differently along a bunch of different points. So pretty interesting to watch, and I hope you enjoyed watching it too. That is going to do it for this video. Again, my name is DDR Kirby. I hope you enjoyed this, and I don't know if I'll be recasting any more of these games, as most of these matches that are happening are actually getting official restreams. So, but I hope you've enjoyed everything so far, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day, evening, or afternoon, wherever it is, whatever it is where you are, and thanks for watching.